Welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the podcast. How is everyone tonight? I hope you're having a great day and start of a good week. Joining me, well, before I get to who's joining me this week, I just want to thank everyone for subscribing to the podcast, for liking the videos. It's really super important. I really appreciate that because every time you watch a video, if you don't like it, it like messes with the algorithm. So I appreciate those of you who like the podcasts. When you watch the videos on YouTube, that's really great. Same thing on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or you can find it under Mary Walter Radio. And of course on YouTube and Getter at Mary Walter Radio. If you're watching on YouTube or Getter and you leave questions, which I think you may have questions for our guest who's coming up here in like 2 seconds, feel free, type them on the screen. We'll get them up on the screen. If you have questions, comments, we'd love to be interactive with you. And you guys are so good at it. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Just a quick programming note. This weekend, I will be on the Wendy Bell Show on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday on Newsmax TV. It's the same show that just repeated a couple times. So it'll be on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And this Friday, I will be in for David Webb on Sirius XM Patriot Channel 125. Now, without further ado, you've seen this man before. This is Steve Redden. He is with NOwTAXUSA. And you can find them at NOwTAXUSA.com and go to the webpage. They have some, I really think, and I don't hawk stuff, like that's just not my jam, but they've got some really great t-shirts for sale to help fund what they do. And I really like them. I thought they were really classic and not like cheesy t-shirts. So go check them out. And just buy it because you like it, not, or if you want to help out the cause, that's another good reason to do so. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Well, as I was saying earlier, it is great to be with the #1 fill-in host of America.
And you're doing always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
You're doing a fantastic job. Are you kidding? You're just waiting for your slot to come up.
So, well, we'll see if that ever happens. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if it happens. I want to tell people they can follow you on Twitter. Follow this account on Twitter. They've got really great information. NOwTAXUSA, NOW, NOwTAXUSA. Great account to follow and super supportive. I really appreciate your support, Steve, and all of your followers. They listen to what I fill in. They follow me on Twitter. They follow the podcast. They come to the podcast. So thank you so much for that as well. It's a mutual admiration society, and I appreciate that.
Those Patriots have to stick together.
There you go. Just want to get to some. We have our regulars here. Bill says hello. Watching Your Back is with us. Says hello. Ron here says Squeaky says hi. Porch View Farm. Hello, Mary and everyone else. We have a nice little community here. Shore Essentials. Hey, Your Highness. Hey, Jerry. How are you? Thanks for joining us. So it is the day after tax day. And the lead up to tax day, I can't speak for other people's homes, but in our home, it's stressful. We make the yearly pilgrimage to the accountant's office. We light candles in the waiting room to have like having a Catholic church with a saint and pray to the God of tax returns that I don't have to sell a child in order to pay what I need to tithe to the government. Scott says hello, and it's very stressful. So the day after tax day, I thought was a good time to have this conversation because I think a lot of people, I know I do, it's so complicated. I don't understand anything. I don't get it. There's people who just do their own taxes and they fill out the little form and God bless you. But we have several LLCs. I feel like a Biden. I'm like a Biden, but without the money. And so we have a couple of LLCs. And so then my husband's, and then I get paid from entities in different states. So that works into stuff. But if I don't go into the building, then I don't have to pay taxes in that state, apparently, right? So like if I work for Fox and my check comes out of New York, but I'm in New Jersey, since I don't go into New York, I don't have to pay New York state tax, whereas in the past I did have to pay New York state tax. So it's just craziness. So I think a lot of people today will probably have questions, as well as if anybody wants to share their anxiety or share your story of what happened when you went to the accountant. I'm going to get my husband to come down and talk about the craziness we have to go through with the state of New Jersey, because they underpaid taxes by like $1,600, and so the penalty is now every month you have to pay withholding, and then we have to pay the $1,600 again, like, or every pay period or quarter. The $1,600 again is like a penalty for underpaying $1,600,
like
even though we wrote a check.
You're in the
Yeah,
penalty box.
right. It's crazy. So now it's pay us to do it for 2 years in order to get back in their good graces. And it's just, and they insist that we file we file electronically every year. And then they ask for paper copies of everything, which we have to send them. But that's only if we're getting a refund do they ask for paper copies, which I find interesting because they don't want to give me my money.
And that's not the federal taxes. That's the state taxes.
State taxes, state. Federal is a disaster too. So before we get to that, I have a question for you right out of the box. All right. And then we'll talk about the emotional side of this and why it doesn't have to be this way. You have a solution. Watching Your Back says, is it next year that the old tax brackets go into effect?
Well, I'm not a tax expert when it comes to that side. I'm a tax expert on the other side, on how to fix the taxes reform. So, Mary, you probably can ask.
I think it's 2025. I think it is. It may be 2027. It may be 27 because I thought it was 10 years, so maybe 2027. But I've been reading a lot about them saying that taxes are going to go up next year under Biden. So it may very well be 2025 that it happens. So,
well, I think you can expect them to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he wants the really rich people to pay their fair share, except for his son and his daughter. They shouldn't have to pay their fair share, and not his kids.
What do you say that? I have a chart right here that has the exact breakdown of who pays what. And
okay,
right here, the top 1% pays 45.8% of the federal income taxes. 1% practically pays
50%. Half of all the income taxes paid.
And 50% of the population pays no taxes at all. So basically, this is a slogan I have. It's like the landlords pay the rent for the tenants.
Right. But he wants to raise the rate on the rich, the upper 1% or whatever it happens to be, to 25%. He wants them to pay 25% of all their income goes to the federal government. Now, I think that's an idea. They're playing to the populist base who's like, yeah, I don't want to pay. Let the rich people pay. It's that thing that goes back and forth. But after a while, it doesn't take too long before you find out that you're wealthy.
Right. Well, with this little chart here, what's really bad is 50% of the people pay 97% of all the taxes. So
the top 50% of earners pay 97% of all taxes paid in this country.
So basically 230 million people, and most corporations, you get this, 230 million people, and most corporations pay no taxes at all. Sounds like a fair system, doesn't it?
Everybody talks about the corporations, that they don't pay their fair share. But, deals are made to bring Amazon to a warehouse to Brooklyn or to Queens. Babe, you can come sit here if you want to. To bring a warehouse, or New Jersey just reinstated the incentives to make movies in New Jersey, that you get tax breaks and that kind of thing. So Netflix is building in the old Fort Monmouth this huge 200-acre facility, which is going to be their East Coast studios, which is huge. It's bringing a ton of money into the state, which is wonderful, and that's great. But housing's expensive enough as it is. They're going to be bringing all these people in who are now going to they'll have money. It's not going to be the actors and the directors that are coming here. It's, the grip people, and, the actors will come in and leave, and the producers will come in and leave. So it's not the high rent people, but it's the middle income people who are going to come here, and they're going to be renting, and they're going to be buying homes. And all it does is drive up the cost of living in the state. Yes, it pumps in a lot of money, which is great, but it also raises the prices of everything as well. And they're not paying as much in taxes. So, they're bringing in a lot of jobs. That's great, but they're not paying as much in taxes for the roads that they're going to be driving on and all the other stuff.
Well, and another thing that bothers me more than that is the government is picking winners and losers again. Anytime you give a
Right.
tax break to one person, you're actually not giving a tax break to another person.
Right.
So I think the government should be out of the business of picking winners and losers. So fundamentally, that's another problem with our overall tax system. It picks corporations over citizens. I mean, we should all be upset about the fact that why can a corporation expense out everything to get their taxes? Actually, C corps only pay 8% of the federal budget. So that means C corps practically pay no taxes at all. Well, why can't citizens expense out? Aren't you in business to be yourself? Why can't you expense all your out so that you have very little income? So why is a corporation is like a hyper super citizen that has more advantages than citizens? And people go, well, that draws in more. The less corporations paying taxes, the more people invest and all that. But there's a better solution. Well, the better solution is now tax.
And we'll get into that, but I just want to also talk about, by the way, Sweetie, here's this shout out to tech support has arrived. From watching your back. Tech support sitting here to explain our tax problems. Just as one of the illustrations of what's going on and why it's so stressful for people. And it doesn't have to be that way. Like I just think there's a lot of agita that goes on surrounding taxes. Now, for the people who aren't paying in, they don't have a care in the world, right? Like
right.
They got nothing to worry about, but it's the rich. So basically we've got a system now where if you pay taxes, you're rich.
Well, I don't think it's the rich people that really worry about taxes. I think it's the middle income, the other percentage that's underneath the, say, the top 5%. That's the group that I think walks around actually worrying about taxes, sort of like a cloud. And I think if we go back to our fundamentals, that's just not part of the mix of what our country's about, is having a government cloud over top of you 24/7, 365.
So how do we get here? How did this get so big and so out of control?
Well, I actually get into the weeds a little bit. I don't know if this is going to bore everyone. Just as everyone commenting, go bore. But if we go back to the Declaration of Independence, and the reason I harp on this is because it's so fundamental. The original Declaration of Independence was the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Actually, the pursuit of happiness was not there. John Locke, who's the original author of Life, Liberty, and Estate meaning property not meaning slavery, property meaning yourself. You own yourself, individual sovereignty. So I call it the original amendment. It's life, liberty, property, and individual sovereignty. So fundamentally, if we went right back to that basic principle, there's no room for income taxes or property taxes because we don't allow it. So if we don't allow it, what are we going to do? We have to have a better system. Well, back in the day, they did tariffs and excise tax, pay-as-you-go taxes. They needed a road, they put a tax on it, they bought the road, the tax was over. So you can start to see where I'm going with this. So fundamentally, the best tax system does not tax income, property, or wealth. So it has to be done through some sort of usage. Well, the problem with sales tax, fair tax, flat tax, they don't raise enough money to pay the budget. So you got to go to the next level. What's the next level? And that's what we've done in NOwTAX. We'll hold that. That'll be a cliffhanger.
Yes.
We'll stop here.
Okay. So Portia
I'm sorry. I didn't get to the one point. The one point was, so in 1913, the 16th Amendment was voted in. Fundamentally, think about this. It's the first time the government gave themselves a right. And the government gave themselves the right to take as much of your income as they want. That's right there in the 16th Amendment. Think about fundamentally, that just doesn't even make sense. The government gave themselves a right.
Well, but the people have a certain amount of control over that with the people who you elect to send to Washington to represent you. And the people sent a bunch of representatives to Washington who thought that was a good idea.
Well, wait a minute. How's that working for you?
Well, and that's part of the problem with our system. These people, if we had term limits, we would have a much different country right now.
Yes.
Right? And we don't have term limits. And then politicians go, well, you have term limits at the ballot box. Don't vote for that person. Well, they just keep running over and over again. And they get name recognition alone gets them reelected.
Exactly. Right.
Right? Because there's a lot of people who just listen, the median IQ is 100 for a reason, right? Because half the people are above and half the people are below. So there's a lot of people who just vote for the name that they recognize, or they vote personality over policy. Well, I don't like them. I want to have a beer with him. He's mean. Oh, she's cute, and that's who they vote for. Like it's an 8th grade presidency that they're voting for, class president that they're voting for, instead of president of the country or their representative in Congress.
Follow that line of thought you just had. So imagine we had term limits, number one, and here's the one I like: one bill, one law. Between those two, you'd probably cut 90% of the excess spending, because you would have no incentive to be bribed by the omnibus, because that's what the omnibus really is. It's a bribe system. And I think those two small adjustments, tax reform and one bill, one law, not tax reform, I'm sorry, term limits, and
Right.
one bill, one law. And then the lawmakers had to complete the law. They don't have to pass it off to the agencies to complete. And then the American public can get to see the law. Then I think it should kind of go back to the states a little bit, to the state legislator, and the state legislator should go, okay, we approve. Right. We've lost all that. That's like what, the 17th Amendment, which supersedes, which nixed out a lot of the 10th Amendment.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't. It's so crazy. It's so. I think it's purposefully confusing so that people just go whatever, and then they vote for the guy they like, the guy who they think is dreamy, whatever. Okay, so Porch Farm says she has a C Corp. Scott, this is interesting. Scott says the other day I was listening to the radio. Someone from an immigration institute said that all the immigrants helped to get a lot of cash flowing and making our economy more vibrant. And I think on the front end, that's the argument. Oh, all these illegals who are coming into the country, they're pumping all this money into the economy, which I immediately say, I thought they were poor and looking for a better life. So how much money do they have to pump into the economy? That's the first thing. And the second thing is they ultimately take out more, because when they wind up in the hospital or their kids go to school, and a lot of them now, if you're elderly and you come here, you immediately get Social Security, which is less for our own citizens, right? So we're handing out so much stuff, they ultimately take far more out of the system than they ever put in the system. And I think is probably a whole different discussion.
I think that's a dubious statement that they add to the economy, because let's say most of them want to come over with 1,000 and we give them 1,000. Say 13 million came over with $1,000. Well, that math doesn't work. If they came over with 10,000, that math doesn't even work really. They'd have to come over with 100,000 for that math to even be a real thing to consider. And if they did come over 13 million with 100,000, we might have a different opinion of them coming over too.
That's very true. Shore Essentials said, Mary, you said tax season causes a lot of agita for people. You may have to explain what that means to people outside New Jersey. Do you know what I mean when I say agita? I
don't know.
Agita's Italian, right? It's an Italian word. So if you grew up in New York, New Jersey, you can speak Yiddish and Italian. So it's an Italian word that means like angst, anxiety. Agita is what you get like when your stomach doesn't feel good. I got agita. Like you don't feel so good. So yes.
Heartburn.
Yeah, heartburn, agita. There you go. Thank you, Jerry. So I'm going to bring tech support in so that he can go do what he has to do. And he can ask you questions.
No, because
talk about because when I talk about it being stressful, come here, come over here. This is what we went through in New Jersey, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before we came on, about how the tax system has turned into a system of punishment.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Right.
And I honestly think that if the system wasn't so complicated and so convoluted, that there wouldn't be a need to punish people, because there wouldn't be mistakes to the degree. Okay, so I'm just going to move over. Tech support, slide in.
Okay.
So you guys should start playing a piano riff, because it looks like you guys are getting ready to do a piano thing together. One turns the page.
Get in.
Okay. Oh, there I am. Okay.
Tech support, Steve, tech support.
Hi, Steve.
And the audience knows you, so it's okay.
When the screens go blank, that's because I'm sitting here talking to you and not doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing behind the scenes.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay. No, I just, for us, it starts a month before, because we've got corporations, which they decided, those taxes have to be in March 15th. And then, of course, a lot of that, since your S Corps passes through. And I looked at our taxes were without all our documentation. The tax pages was 72 pages, and that's just the federal return was 72 pages, and then the state's short, but it only 20 pages, I think. But like Mary was saying, we underpaid our state tax by $1,600. So not only did I obviously had to pay that yesterday, but now I have to pay estimated taxes, quarterly estimated taxes, which are in April, June, September, and January. And as far as I can tell, April to June is not a quarter. But now that's a penalty, and they know I'm not going to go and adjust my withholdings. So they're basically going to get $6,000 extra from me that then at the end of the year, I'm going to have to, next year at this time, I'm going to be fighting to get back from them. And it's ridiculous. It's like I said, I could never do, our taxes, I don't think we're far from being very rich people, but I could never do my taxes. The people who make money on our taxes are, I don't even know if the federal government makes money, but surely my accountant is making a good living. He drives a much nicer car than we do.
Well, let's talk about states for a minute. Right now, Kristi Noem, South Dakota, of course, it's a small state, has, based on a system that we use, it's called a broad-based tax system. She does a broad-based sales tax system, whereas typically you only use consumer goods. Well, she increased it to services and some other items, just enough so that the sales tax was enough to pay for to eliminate the income tax and property taxes in South Dakota.
Wow.
So again, not to use another cliffhanger, but you can start seeing where the now tax is creeping towards. Like, okay, what's these little keywords? And the keyword is really broad base. And that's what we've developed as a broad-based tax system. As a matter of fact, it took us a long time to even come up with the name broad-based tax system, because it's just, we couldn't explain what we were trying to say to people. And I could go into more detail now, or we can cliffhang a little longer.
No. I want to go into, because you referred to the now tax system. So explain what because I've heard, like we should have a flat tax. It should just be a flat tax where everybody pays the same. And it's just on a like a postcard. Trump talked about that. You can do your taxes on the back of a postcard. This is how much I made. This is how much I owe, and that's that. And then I've heard, well, no, it should be the flat tax. What's the other one? The fair tax, right? Where everybody pays the same percent. Well, is that the flat tax? Is the same percentage?
The flat tax. Well, yeah. Let me get into that, because I hate to say I can read your mind, but you got to understand the flat tax, and that's a Steve Forbes thing, is basically saying everyone pays income taxes, businesses, corporations, and individuals. But the problem with that is the rate would have to be probably 22% for everybody to pay enough money just to pay our federal budget, our federal budget. That doesn't even address starting to pay down the debt. So it sounds like a good idea, except for one thing: it doesn't collect enough money. Same thing with the fair tax. Fair tax is a progressive. It is not a consumer tax. It's a progressive sales tax. By your income rate that determines your sales tax rate. And Grover Norquist, who basically put the kibosh on fair tax, came out with a paper on August 3rd of 2023, which said if you really calculate the real rate of the fair tax at the highest tax bracket, because you still have to pay your taxes based on how much you make, would be like 35% sales tax. Well, but you also take in consideration you're not paying on all your income. You're only paying on your consumption. But who wants to pay 35% to buy a new car and then 7% state sales tax, and then your property? Right. So now what's the thing is, the sticker shock will be so bad, people will just go, okay, I'm gonna let my car run till the wheels run off. So you can see, even though technically it's a lower tax because of you're not paying on your full income, but you are paying on your consumption. But if you're a household that spends all their money on consumption, that has no extra money, you can see your tax rate's probably the same or more than our even current system. So why would you trade up for a more expensive system? Right. And then once again, only top earners pay that tax. If you're below the income poverty line, you pay no taxes. If you're a corporation or business, you pay no taxes. If you are selling used goods, used cars, used materials, you pay no taxes. Is that fair to the new car guy? Is that fair to the retailer selling brand new goods that the guy down the street can sell a used car without taxes? You see how, so
Right.
the intentions are good, but the underlying problem is they still don't collect enough money. And that's where you start going, okay, what's that formula that gets us to the point where we can pay all our bills and start to pay down debt? And that's where we come in. Now I'll take a break. Getting too weedy, but you can jump in there or ask me another question, or I can.
Well, no, but tell us. So you say that's where we come in. So what's your system?
Okay, there's a formula. What is the perfect tax? It's the now tax, and here's our formula we actually came up with. It's I'll try to do it off the top of my head. It's very short. It's apolitical. It is nonpartisan. It has the least amount of rules, laws, and regulations.
Okay.
Spread across the largest, broadest base of the economy to create the lowest tax to have little or no effect on our economy. That's the formula. So break it down. It's real simple. What's the broadest base? The broadest base is its test. This is an acronym we came up with. Total sales of goods, services, and transactions from Wall Street to Main Street. Everyone pays a thin tax, like a 1% to 2% tax.
Okay.
Everything. So, I mean, I'm talking a little too fast, but
no, you're not. You're fine.
Let's look at it from this point of view. Think of it as our economy is a toll road, super economic highway, right? Toll road. Everyone, I mean, literally everyone, whether you're 2 years old, 1 year old, or 90 years old, Wall Street, Main Street, you have to get on into our economy, right? Well, that economy is supported by infrastructure. Why infrastructure is our budget. So shouldn't everyone pay for their exact percentage use of the infrastructure? Wouldn't that be the fairest tax? So if you never use the toll road, you don't pay any taxes. If you use the toll road all the time, let's say like Federal Express, they literally use the toll road and the roads, but you can see their gross number so large, but now just a small percentage of their gross goes on to it. Now someone's going to go, well, what's a tax on top of a tax on tax of a tax, like a VAT tax, which that's the other tax that doesn't work because again, VAT tax is a good idea, but it doesn't raise enough money to cover all the issues. But if you use a broad-based tax or a real thin tax, a nominal tax, everyone pays. Everyone has skin in the game. Again, you're 1 year old, I'm 90 years old.
So so it's a consumption tax and it's a sales tax.
It goes beyond a consumption tax. It's actually technically it would be called a transaction tax because everything is a transaction.
Okay, so what would be taxed? And you say like 1 year old. How does a 1 year old pay tax?
Well, let's say theoretically, mom gives him $1 to go buy some bubble gum. Or 5 years old.
I was gonna say that's one hell of a 1 year old.
I had a smart 1 year old. No, just kidding. But you see what I'm saying. So if you're a kid, and you're out having fun and your mom gives you $20 allowance, you can go spend money on whatever you want. That you've paid your taxes. Now states can adapt it
because you're paying sales tax.
And states can adapt that exact same thing. No more property taxes, no more income tax, no more wealth tax. Now we're back to the fundamental original amendment, life, liberty, property, wealth, individual sovereignty. We protect our citizens and the government is totally off your back forever.
But didn't you just say that a sales tax, a national VAT wouldn't cover?
Because VAT is on finished goods only. A VAT is only on finished. It's not a broad enough base. It's only on finished goods. So
what things would be taxed with this that aren't taxed now?
Everything. For example, the church gets donation. Let's say they say church. Let's say an NGO that helps foreigners come across the border. When they do their deposit now, they pay their 1%. So every transaction. Think of it again. If you're getting on the economic toll road, you got to put your nickel in the basket.
Yeah, I got it. I'm just trying to think like what. So I'm just trying to think like what would give me an example of food. Well, because in our state we don't pay tax on food.
But this is a federal tax.
This is a federal tax.
Okay, but wait a minute. Isn't that picking winners and losers? So again, the government is involved in picking winners and losers. No matter how humane it sounds, the government has picked food as a winner.
Right. No, I got it. But
what if you sell chocolate bars and make everyone fat? And that's tax exempt. How good is that for the economy? See, you can't pick winners and losers, and that's what this tax.
I get it. So when I go to the grocery store, like I was just at the grocery store today, in my state, there's no tax on food, right? If it's prepared for you, there's tax. If it's not prepared, you don't pay tax, right? So I would pay a federal tax on food, and you say it'd be a very low tax. Like how much would it be?
Probably between 1% to 2%.
Okay.
Nominal.
All right. So I would pay on food. I would pay on you said
Everything,
everything, anything I buy. But it's
Right.
not just things, tangible things you buy. It's on services as well.
Right.
So
Right.
if I hire someone to come to the house to, I don't know, clean it in my dreams. But if I did, and someone comes to the house to clean it, they would have to charge me tax.
Right. Let's take the winners and losers again. If I install your windows, there's a tax right now, right? Sales tax.
Right.
If I clean your windows, there's no sales tax.
Right.
What's the fairness in that?
What prevents the state from imposing their state tax on the same stuff?
They should. That's what South Dakota has done. They've just broadened the base. I don't know exactly all the things that are taxable because I don't know their total code.
Right.
But because they broadened the base enough to cover their budget, that's all they had to cover. And I believe they started covering services was the big kicker. Like advertising agencies, you don't pay any, there's, again, winners and losers. I think that's how you got to look at it. Why should anyone get a tax?
I get that. I get that.
Right.
I just think that people I think there's going to be sticker shock for a lot of people when they're paying, if the feds are charging 2% and the state's charging 2%, now I'm paying 4% on something that I paid 0% on before.
Yeah, but you're also paying 4% on buying a new car too. There's offsets.
Okay, whereas before you pay more, but some people pay nothing on buying a new car, right? Oh no, I guess you always pay on a new car, whether you're
clothing, luxury
right, you don't
items.
pay anything on clothing in New Jersey. You don't pay taxes on clothing here.
But then don't forget, you're not paying income tax at the end of the year. So that $10,000 or $20,000 that you're paying to the government through the year is actually coming into your pocket.
Right. But then, what about things like property taxes? Do you still
no more property taxes?
New Jersey can't do that. Yeah. We have over $20,000 in property taxes. New Jersey ain't giving that up. That's not happening.
But you have to do your budget. If you look at the broad-based concept, do the math. You really do the hard math. And taking South Dakota as a good example, when they did the hard math, they were eliminated income and property taxes because they broadened the sales tax base just enough to cover those expenses. So some states may not be able to do it. You may be right, but you got to take a look at it. But you got to also look at, would you rather have the eternal mortgage? Because here's the hidden rub. On average, most people will pay 25 to 1/3 of their equity in their property in property taxes. So we'll look at that offset by not having a property tax and having maybe a little bit higher sales tax, or in this case, a transaction tax.
Okay, so I have some questions and some comments. Gregory says, he doesn't think I'd like the winters in South Dakota. The winters don't bother me. I don't want to live someplace that's like deserty and has tumbleweeds, so I don't think I would like it.
You want to hear my rule? You don't live places where things can eat you.
There you go. Porchview Farm says West Virginia is moving towards an eliminated income and property tax.
Correct. That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Watching Your Back said, I heard they're still trying to pass a tax on unrealized gains.
Now, yeah, they're trying to. And again, that would never be an issue again, because we've eliminated the concept of taxing wealth, property, and income.
Yeah, here's the thing about the tax on unrealized gains. So this means that if you have money in the stock market or an investment, and you get your tax, you get your form at the end of the year, and you say, "Oh, my money that's in this account, I haven't touched it, but it's in this account, made $500 this year. The government wants to tax me on that $500, even though I don't have it. But I guess so. If I pay them on that, in next year, if I lose $500, do they give me money back?"
Right. In the old days, they called that phantom income. Right.
Phantom income. I like that much better than unrealized gains. It's not a gain. I haven't gained anything.
Being in the subchapter S, I got zapped with phantom income once. It was painful.
Yeah, it's just something I don't understand. So this would get rid of that, and I guess I don't understand how that works, because okay, I paid you $500. The government made money on that $500. Well, now do I? Next year if I lose money, do you pay me now?
No, you're right. It's just illogical. It just adds.
Of course.
It adds to the 6,871 pages code.
And it makes our 70 some odd page tax return into an 80-page tax return.
Well, Steve, I'll tell you one thing that's interesting. You said, having you talking about a flat tax. I do it every year. I do what our real tax rate is. Again, on the business card, how much we made, how much we paid, what percentage. It's miraculous with our accounts. It always comes out around 21 to 22%.
Yeah. Well,
but that takes 68 pages to do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's necessary. I think the other problem is all the other tax systems we're talking about don't even come close to paying our federal budget, which we go $1 trillion to $500 billion every year in debt. It will never begin to pay down our national debt. It will never guarantee Social Security and Medicare is fully funded. See, that's the other thing. Because let's just say we want to fully fund benefits. Now we might say, let's go 3%. So now we don't have extra cash, but we have cash that's going to make sure benefits are always paid to the people that have paid in, Social Security mainly and Medicare.
We give it to people. We give that to people who haven't paid in. The elderly who walk across the border, who've never paid in, suddenly qualify for Social Security. I don't understand how that happens.
Could you imagine if the Republicans said we can guarantee funding for the Social Security and Medicare forever, and we'll even up 0.5% and guarantee no matter what you've paid in a $2,500 a month Social Security check when you reach 65. How would you like that? I think it'd be obvious who would win the presidency.
But here's the other part of that to me, and we've got more questions coming up, so get your comments in or questions if you have them. Here's the thing, though, is that government, they keep every year record income, a record haul for the taxes, right? Record haul in taxes, followed by record spending by Congress. Right. So if they don't stop the spending, you can tax me till the cows come home. After a while, there's nothing left.
Well, that's
so
part
if they don't
two.
Stop spending.
That's part two. Let's get part one done. Let's get the government off our backs. Then we'll deal with the laws and the spending.
What I see happening with this, it sounds great, but what I see happening is Elizabeth Warren and the rest of the hippies that are now, who are the man now. I see them coming in and go, well, the wealthy shouldn't be paying the same share, the same consumption. They should be paying more. So we should put an income tax, but only on the wealthy. And here we go. And then we slowly work our way to, Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and all of them are paying this extra tax. And it slowly works its way down in income. And the next thing you know, I'm paying this 3% tax on everything now. And I'm paying an income tax because suddenly now I'm wealthy.
Well, that's where we have to have, I guess they used to call it a paradigm shift. Maybe they call it a sea change now. I don't know what a sea change is yet. And get back to the fundamentals. See, when people finally realize we're individual sovereigns and not national sovereign, we're individual sovereigns that own our own property, we own our own wealth, and we own our own income. You gotta believe that. If you don't believe that, probably will never work. But that's kind of one of those fundamental shifts that you have to start talking about. What does it mean to be a citizen of the United States? And I'm not a fundamentalist. I'm an originalist, when it comes to that. So.
All right. Here's another question here. This is from Greg. He says, are you going to tax me when I put money in my savings account?
No, anything inside your own personal accounts is exempt from this tax. So as long as you're transferring money or saving money in your own account, there'd be no tax on that.
Would there be tax on things like buying and selling stocks or things like that? Because Scott says everybody should get a Bitcoin account. So like Bitcoin and all that stuff, there'll be a transaction fee on everything. Yes.
And see, that's where you're not going to believe. Well, I ran some numbers on it, and you could actually probably just tax Wall Street and the stock market, and citizens wouldn't pay any taxes at all. That's how much they trade.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people who have accounts who, have these, funds and, they make trades for you. If you're part of this fund, you're going to be paying for it too. So it's not just going to be the rich Wall Street guys who are paying this. It's also going to be everybody.
Well, again, look at it as if you're on that economic superhighway of the American economy, we got to pay for the infrastructure. You have to have a fair way to pay for the infrastructure. And you're talking about the rich, proportionally rich are going to use the infrastructure more than the poor. So technically, depending on who you are, how much you spend, in corporations, everyone is proportionally going to pay exactly their percentage usage of the infrastructure. And I don't think there could be anything more fair than paying for what you use.
I see, the complaint I see is like, well, poor families, they have to buy stuff for kids, and they consume more, so it's going to hit them disproportionately hard. And that's where I see that argument coming in, because it's gonna hit poor families disproportionately hard. They can't afford, everything that they buy, the bookcase for Jimmy, the book bag, and the notebooks and this and that, just to go back to school. Now they're paying 3% more. It's more expensive for them.
But they gladly will pay their 7% on pizza without complaints.
Well,
Is that fair?
right, and they'll pay it on their manicures and their tattoos and everything else.
Yeah.
However, that's not what people hear. That's not what sells. But a single mom with 3 kids who can't afford to buy a book bag for each one of their kids, or backpack, will, that's what sells, and that's what, is on the front page.
I would say that's a political government argument, because name one person you've ever heard complain about sales tax. I'll tell you when you complain about sales tax, when you buy a car. That's when you complain about sales tax.
Yeah.
But every day, I have never complained about sales tax. Matter of fact, I'd rather pay sales tax all day long than worry about paying income tax. Personally.
Well, it is something you can control, right? It's something you can control.
Right.
That, if you don't want to pay the sales tax, or if you don't want to pay as much because the sales tax bumps up a car that you were going to buy to something that you can't afford, well, then you're going to resent it, right? You're going to resent it. And I don't know. I don't know if this flies. I don't know if this flies. Let's go to Gregory. He says, would you see this scheme being implemented as a consequence of Article 5 during a convention of states? Wow, I have no idea. I've got to look that up.
Well, actually, I beg Mark Meckler on a weekly basis to make this one of his major planks. Now, ironically funny, after I sent him an email, which he never responds to, even though I'm a member of the COS.
Wait, tell everybody what COS is.
Oh, Convention of States.
There you go.
But ironically funny, after I sent my long letter to him, 3 days later, I got a fundraiser letter saying COS is concentrating on eliminating the 16th Amendment. So I thought maybe I got through to him.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, something has to be done somewhere along the line. But I think no matter what you do, there's going to be, they have to put back into the Constitution, they have to put something in there to prohibit an income tax on a state or federal level.
The state, right? So that's an issue state by state, but on federal, yes. What I want to tell you is on the website there is the proposed amendment is on the website.
Okay. Hold on. Okay.
Somebody got to work.
He said he just left and said somebody has to work, and he just walked away.
You got to pay the taxes.
That's exactly what he just said. He goes, I got to go pay the taxes. That's my problem with all this, agreeing to this and saying, okay, so I'm going to be paying taxes on a lot of things I never paid taxes on before. Okay, I'll agree to do that. And so, but the other part of it, but I don't want to pay property tax anymore, and I'm not going to pay income tax anymore.
Right.
So you've got to get the states to agree to that, obviously, and some states may not agree to that.
Well, we have 9 states that have gone in that direction, and I think if a state like Florida were to broaden their base just a little bit, as big as their state is, and with all the tourism, they could eliminate property taxes very easily.
Well, the good thing for them is with all the tourism, all the tourists are paying, but they're already paying sales tax in Florida, right?
That's why I laugh at DeSantis when he goes, our economy is the greatest ever. Of course it is. You got 20, 30 million people a year coming down spending $4,000 or $5,000. Name another state that has that going on.
4 or 5 is probably more than that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The other side of this I see is, because I see this happening more and more. where I go into an establishment, every time we go to a restaurant now, we call to find out if they charge the 3%, 3.5% for a credit card, because that's a new thing now. All of a sudden,
Oh, yeah.
everybody's charging you for the credit card fee. So that's a whole Bidenomics, because the economy is so bad and inflation's so ridiculous that to survive and not have to keep raising their prices, now they charge you for their credit card fee. So I have to go to the bank, and I'm walking around. If we're going to we're going to a restaurant on a Friday night, I'm like Hunter Biden with enough cash in my pocket. It's like hooker and blow night, right? Like, except I don't have all ones. So, and I'm walking around with a ton of cash. I think you start to see more cash transactions to skirt the law, because people who are small business owners, or people who normally, like sell stuff on eBay, or like my neighbor down the street who sells stuff at she has a yard sale twice a year, and she donates, or she sponsors a pet at the shelter that needs shots or something along those lines. She would probably have to collect sales tax. She's not equipped to do that.
Well, it's easy with our system. You make a deposit, they automatically take the 1% off your deposit, because
in my bank, in the bank.
Yeah, automatic.
But okay, but see, so then but you're pushing, and this is something the federal government doesn't want, because you're pushing it to cash, because her thing is cash. It's a cash transaction. So when she gives that,
one of the laws in the amendment is everyone has to have a bank account. You have to do all income deposits or sales deposits. That's the only law that we truly have. But if you didn't, eventually that money, I don't want to use the word trickles, but eventually that money, let's say you're a cash person, you go to a restaurant and buy goods, there is going to be a tax generated through that purchase. Maybe not as much as the total, but at least it's keep going in the same direction.
Right. But for her, so it's a cash yard sale. She shouldn't take credit cards. It's just stuff. It's a yard sale, and everybody in the neighborhood gives her stuff to sell. And then she picks like a dog or a cat or whatever at a vet or a humane society or SPCA that needs surgery or whatever, and she pays for it. And she'll bring in like $1,500 in a weekend, and it's all cash.
Yeah.
Now that's a transaction.
Yeah, that's where honesty comes in too. So I think most people are.
But I'd rather that money go to the animal than to some tax.
Well, it still would, because what she would technically do is she charges a person. They buy an item for $10. She'd charge $10.10 when she made her deposit, so she can write a check to someone. The bank takes that 1% off the top, so it doesn't really affect her money. It takes the 1% off the top, because the person buying the item pays that transaction, not her.
A lot of bookkeeping for people. A lot of people aren't that smart to be able to do something like that. Sure, there is, because I got to know it's $1 plus 10 cents, and then I got to keep the 10 cents over here, and I got to keep the dollar over here.
No.
Got to make sure.
No, it's automatic as soon as you make your deposit. Let's say
you're in the bank, but my point is people aren't going to deposit the money in the bank. Well, Americans live their lives figuring out how to keep their money from the federal government. Okay. So if you think that money is going to hit a bank account, you're dreaming. That's cash. That cash is going to make its way into the hands of somebody at the SPCA or wherever it happens to be. And it's going to be cash.
Well, let's follow that cash. If it goes to SPCA, when they make their deposit, they're going to pay the percent.
Unless they just take the cash and give it to somebody else for the shots or something. Then if that vet chooses to deposit all of it, that's great. But I think there are people who'd be like, oh, cash, fantastic. And listen, my grandparents were immigrants to this country, and they ran a bakery, and they had 2 bakeries at one point. And my grandmother taught me when I was very young, because she taught me how to use a cash register. She goes, Mary, 1 for Uncle Sam, 2 for us. 1 for Uncle Sam, 2 for us. And that's so since the beginning of income tax and taxes, Americans have been figuring out how to cheat the system.
Well, we say 1 for Uncle Sam, 9 for us.
Yeah, see, I get it. But my point is, I think that there's a way for a lot of, and I'll tell you, in this economy, I see a lot of people saying, well, if you can give me cash, I can cut you a deal.
Well, when we go on
and
the
why
system,
why can they give me cash and cut me a deal? Because that cash is going to disappear.
Well, yeah, but because of this system, because you're restructuring the taxes, it'll be like each citizen getting a $15,000 a year raise. So there's one of your offsets. So
I get it. You're still asking people to be honest. I'm sorry. I just think
Well,
that
let's say if you're doing minor things like that, but if you're doing malicious fraud, like you're a corporation or a business, and you're
right.
pocketing a lot of cash, it's easy. You fall, you can't drive a brand new Mercedes, and the guy goes, "Hey, how'd you pay for that?" Oh, I can't remember. I paid for that Mercedes.
Well,
I know I paid with it some way.
that's different, but I
So
think
you
I think on a lot of levels, because I'm using more cash than ever before because of the dopey 3.5% charge if I use my credit card. So the government wants me to use digital cash so they can track absolutely every single transaction I make. Yet at the same time, because I get dinged for that, I'm going to the bank and getting out $200 at a clip, $300 at a clip on a Saturday so that I can go get my hair done or go do this or go do that because I got to put out the hundreds in order to get a service.
let's say your worst case scenario, you're a drug dealer and you just pocketed $100,000. Now you went and bought a car. You end up paying taxes on that car because you bought
Yes.
it.
Yes.
So
I agree.
It may not be the full boat, but at least
Right.
you're getting a little bit.
Yeah, you keep talking about big ticket items and I'm talking about smaller items. I'm talking about things like the guy who cuts my lawn. Sure, I'll give you cash.
Yeah, but you got to also remember if he's trying to build his credit, he's going to have to go into the banking system if he's trying to go legit.
Yes, and he has a bank. I'm sure he has a checking account. I'm sure he has a savings account. But if only half the cash goes in there,
But let's say he's going legit and he wants to get a business loan, he's going to have to show revenue to get a business loan.
yes,
So there's a balance. There's a
yeah,
yin and yang to it.
yeah. I'm just seeing more and more people using cash now because of they don't want to do that. And so many people say to you now, well, if you pay cash, just make it this amount. I don't know what they do
But
with
see,
cash.
you're an honest person. You're an honest person using cash, but you're still paying your taxes.
Am I? I don't know what they do with that cash.
Oh,
I have no idea what they do with that cash. I have no idea if they deposit that in a savings or checking account or they put it in a shoebox under the bed. I don't know what they do with it.
if you got a $10,000 in cash, I think you would go, I better put that in the bank because I'm not going to go to jail for $10,000.
You keep talking big amounts. Well,
$10,000 isn't a lot of money this day.
Well, to some people it is. And I think if you look at it on a micro level, it's all I'm saying is that I think on a micro level, there is always going to be that happening. And I personally, and maybe I just live in a weird area, but I personally now see more people using cash, like I said, at businesses because they don't want to pay the fee, the 3.5%. So they're using cash. And I think the more cash you use, the government's right. That's why they want digital currency so they can tax every single penny. They know every transaction you make because they don't want anybody using cash because they want their fair, what they think is their fair share. So that's all I'm saying with this.
Even under our current system, though, that's going on. People are not reporting their cash.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen no matter what system you use.
So. Gregory says, I guess if you barter, you've gamed the system. Bartering is great. I love bartering.
Yes. Yeah.
Barter a lot of stuff. I love bartering. Bartering services. Well, I think you'll see a lot more of that, a lot more of bartering services and that type of thing. I think that'll happen.
But even if on today's system, if you barter and don't claim it, you can be popped for tax evasion.
If I'm bartering with somebody, he's going to tell the government, yeah, I cut her lawn and she gave me a haircut, and the government's going to come after me because I gave him a haircut and I didn't charge him for it, or he cut my lawn. What was I supposed to report there?
Well, you're going to be the person that's giving out lawn cuts for everyone because you have so many lawn cuts in the bank. You're going to sell lawn cuts for haircuts. Give me an egg and give me some eggs. I'll give you a hair.
See, but that's the thing. Like, back in the day, I mean, it doesn't happen now, but back in the day, when my husband first started in practice, a lot of times people who couldn't pay, because now that he's corporate, everything's corporate medicine, you're not allowed to do this anymore. But when they were independent and on their own practice, they knew they had some people who couldn't pay. So one guy was a hunter and he would bring him deer meat or duck meat or this or that. And they would say, okay, and he would give them that in exchange of paying because he couldn't. Right. So,
well, look at it this way too, that people that are living that way are probably using the least amount of infrastructure too. They're probably
Maybe.
kind of living off the grid. Like the way I lived, I pretty much just drive back and forth to the grocery store. So I don't use any infrastructure at all,
Right.
but I, paying like property taxes, it's very painful because every time I pay the property taxes, I'm going like, what am I getting for my money? Because I really can't see what I'm getting for my money.
Oh, trust
Yeah.
me, Jerry, the Shore Essentials lives in New Jersey. He knows my pain. He said, in your yard sale animal hospital scenario, the animal hospital will eventually bank or spend it, and at that point, the tax happens. I get it, but if my friend puts it in the bank, she pays the 3%. She writes the check, right? So now she's lost 3%. She writes the check, sends it to the SPCA. They put it in the bank, right? They get dinged 3% on that same amount of money, that same check. Now it's worth even less. Then they send it to the animal hospital. The animal hospital deposits it. That $1,500 is now taxed at 9% because it gets 333.
Actually, that's called tax compounding or pyramiding. And if you do it on a traditional sense, like supply chain, the tax, like if you did, let's say supply chain's 5 steps, raw materials, wholesale, distributor, retailer, consumer, 5 steps. And if you only charge 1% tax on each one of those, the actual mean tax is 3% because you're only taxing on the goods you're purchasing. You're not being taxed on the profit. So tax compounding, but it also works the same way in a VAT tax. That's why it's essential that the broad base has to come into play so the rate's very low. And then if you take the offsets of 3% compounded over the income tax system now to the citizen gets whacked. Whereas now the citizen gets off the hook forever, and now everyone else pays more.
Right. But see, I think, and I get the system that you're talking about, but I think it's a hard sell. I think it's a hard sell to people because they don't understand compounding and this versus the income tax. They just want to know how much is it going to cost me. That's what they want to know. Bottom line. And so they're like, well, wait a minute. Like I'm saying now, so I'm going to have to pay tax on clothing, which I don't have to pay right now. Oh, that's going to be more money. And what if my state doesn't get rid of my property tax, which is over $20,000 and goes up $1,000 a year practically every year, right? So as I said to my husband, I'm like, when we hit 30, do we sell? Is that when we're out? Like when we hit 30,000, do we go? So my state says, we're not going to get rid of your property tax. Well, now this isn't a good deal for me because now I don't get my tax-free clothes in New Jersey anymore, and I don't get other things unless you make it a state-by-state deal. That some states do this.
Oh no,
that's
the state will regulate their own tax system. No, this is a federal system only. Yeah.
Right, but on a federal level, then I'm going to get dinged for things that my state didn't have. I didn't pay taxes on, like clothing or food. I never pay taxes on. So in New Jersey, I'm like, well, I don't buy my clothing in New York, and a lot of people from New York come to New Jersey to buy their clothes because they don't pay tax here. So that's the one thing we have. We have that, and somebody pumps my gas. Those are the things I get here. Now you're telling me the feds are going to come in and go, oh, that's no tax on clothing thing. Not only are you going to continue to pay.
No. The feds have nothing to do with the state. Feds have nothing to do with the state.
But you said every transaction would get taxed. So on a federal level, the
On
clothing
the federal
would get
level
taxed.
only.
Right.
Only
but I don't pay taxes on clothing on a federal level right now. So that's an additional tax that's going to be put on me. So I'm going to be paying more.
Well, but you're saving $20,000 a year from not paying income taxes. So you're not going to pay income taxes. So your offset is $20,000 a year back in your pocket. So let's say you make $100,000 a year. Okay. And let's
that'd
say,
be nice.
Okay, it's easy
like
math.
10. I got news for you. The America's filling makes like 10.
So right now, if you make $100,000 a year, if you spend all $100,000 of your money, you're going to only pay 1% of that. Was that $1,000 or is that 10,000? My math's not going off. That would be 100,000.
I wasn't paying attention to the numbers. I zone when it comes.
Yeah. But anyway, you can see it 1% of 100,000 is a lot less than 22% of 100,000 on the level.
It's got to be, you got to put it on a postcard this big and make it super simple for people, or else.
Well, it's simpler than that. You make a deposit, you've paid your taxes. You don't do anything. You don't even have to do a postcard.
That's true. That is very true. But the sell of the system, like I have questions, like I'm sitting there going, I don't know if I'm really going to save money with this. I'm kind of doubting this, because my property tax, my state doesn't participate. I'm still shelling out the money for my property
We'll just
taxes.
talk about federal. Just talk about federal income taxes.
Right. No, I understand that.
If you had right now, you're paying like 15 to 20% if you're making 100,000. Let's say 15%. So you're paying 15,000. With our tax system, that is 1,000 is all you're going to pay. So you're going to put $14,000 back in your pocket. See the offset? Would you rather pay 14,000 in income taxes or 1% of federal tax?
How do you know though that I'm going to get 14,000? Because it depends on what but it depends on what I consume during the year, right?
No, I said if you consumed all $100,000, you spent $100,000.
Okay.
Now if you spend $100,000, you actually go into debt $15,000 because of your taxes. Whereas this system, you only go in debt you go in debt. Actually, because when you get paid, you get paid 100,000 and 1,000. So, but on your consumption, right, you'd still pay your 1%. But still, 1% is a lot lesser than $15,000. 1,000.
It's a lot of numbers.
That's what happens. There comes a point where, but it's as simple as a sales tax. It's just a lot lower.
Yeah.
Think of it from that point.
Well, I'll believe you, but
we're working on it.
you guys need to make it a graph. Like if you make this much money, this is how much you'll pay. But it's going to depend on which state you live in. Because if you live in a state that doesn't want to get rid of property tax or doesn't want to get rid of this or doesn't want to get rid of that, you're still going to pay, right?
State and federal taxes have nothing to do with each other. They're totally separate. So that's kind of, I think, what we confuse.
Right. And I understand what you're saying. But again, if you live in a state where the feds are now going to tax things that your state didn't previously tax, for the people in that state, they're like, wait, I'm paying more taxes because I'm paying this. And you're saying, but it's only 1% that you're paying on this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't pay any percent on it before.
Yeah, you did. You paid your income tax at your tax rate.
Right. But that's my federal income tax. But
no, that's just how the tax is calculated, is by your consumption. No, it's separate. They're totally separate. No, but but they just ask yourself this question: would you rather spend 15,000 in income taxes or 1,000 in a federal sales tax?
It depends on how much I buy, because I don't know how much I'm going to spend at the end of the year, depending on how much I buy.
If you only spend 50,000, then you'd only spend 500 in taxes versus 15,000.
Right.
Yeah, it's just it becomes.
Matt and I are not friends.
No, it becomes foggy. But you just got to ask yourself: do you like paying income taxes? Do you like having the income tax forms? Do you like having to go through the 6,871 page?
Of course.
So there are trade-offs, and the other trade-off is you got a one-page tax bill that's 740 words long.
Right.
That when you buy a candy bar and a Coke, you paid your taxes.
That's true. No, I get it. But I don't mean to be difficult, but I think there's a lot of people who are going to be like me who go, I don't understand this, because all they see is, wait a minute, how come, my jeans that cost $50 are now, $52 or whatever. And they're like, wait a minute. And they see the extra tax. I think the initial reaction is to go, wait a minute, this isn't good, because they have to wait till the end of the year to see how their taxes worked out to see that it actually works.
Not really, because right now with the holding systems, you get your taxes taken out you could be able to compare week to week.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's good. That's good. Okay.
I knew I'd get there sooner or later. But that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good. I got to add that to the.
Yeah, that's a good way for people to.
Because you know what I say? I say about withholdings, and Milton Friedman, he said, I wish I had never started withholdings. And forever I've said, the problem with withholdings is people are put to sleep by their paycheck because they do not realize, because it gets automatic, they take your money.
Yeah.
Even like you right there, you're kind of demonstrating like, I'm not going to pay any taxes this week. But you look at your tax, wait a minute, I'm paying a bunch of taxes. I just never really paid attention because I just take the check and, no, it's even worse. Now they got to do automatic deposits, so you don't even see your check.
Yeah, so you should definitely come up with, like, if you make this much, here's your check, this is what you pay, but this is how much you would have with our plan.
I need to do it on a paycheck. You know what I did? I did it on gross income. I did a mem. It goes,
No.
Your stack, government income stack, fair tax stack, now tax stack. But if I did it on a weekly check, that's
Have a calculator on your webpage where I can put in how much my weekly check is, right? And then you could, or how much my year is, however it is that you calculate it out. This is how much you have now. This is how much you would have with our tax.
Very good
That's a
idea.
simple way.
No,
And
very
then I
good.
could,
No, you're right. I didn't think about I think annual incomes. I didn't think about people that live week to week,
yeah,
or 2 weeks to 2 weeks. Yeah, that's
they would know. All right. So very quickly here, Scott talks about the government going to use cryptocurrency, making for something for citizens. I think he's talking about digital currency that the government talks about forcing everyone to use. They'll get rid of like cash, and you have to use digital currency.
Yeah,
which
I'm fundamentally against government doing pretty much anything anymore.
I'm with you. Jerry says, don't forget you wouldn't have to pay your CPA at the end of the year either. That's going to be a huge savings. That's true. That would be a good savings. But that's another reason this is never going to happen.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
They estimate all in expenses for preparing taxes is $500 billion a year. So that'd be money to go right back into the GDP.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a battle there. Yeah, I agree with that one.
Yeah. But see, the vast majority of Americans, I don't think, use a CPA to have their taxes done. Most people don't. So if I could go to your webpage and put in, you have some kind of formula that you can see, this is how much and this is how much you're going to get, especially for people, like you said, who live paycheck to paycheck, as a lot of people do. And then for other people who maybe have something a little bit more advanced, this is what you put in. This is what your taxes are this year. This is what it would be next year with ours, and just make it easy.
No, but just a simple chart. If you make this much this week, this is the comparison.
Yeah,
good idea. That's a really good idea.
Yeah. Not even a chart though. Put it in and see how much you would pay in withholding. This, and this is how much you've got left.
All right. Let me
talk to
your IT guy after this.
It was my IT guy.
You whip me up a form.
All right, Steve. Thank you so much. I wasn't trying to be difficult at all. I just had all these questions, and I'm not good at math. People who are not good with numbers, I am seriously math handicapped. For instance, I'll do it very quickly. I never got past second grade, and Shore Essentials was in grade school with me. So he probably knows this. So if I have a bottle of water and I multiply it by 0, how many bottles of water do I have?
It's still 0.
Where did this one go?
Oh, okay.
I don't. Second grade. Mrs. Huff in second grade. To this day, I can't do multiplication because Mrs. Huff told me that I think too much and ask too many questions.
No, that's a little bit of a genius observation about the 0 equation concept.
They're like, well, you didn't have it to begin with. I'm like, that's not what it says. It says I have 1.
You're right. You're right. Exactly right. You found the flaw in our math system.
And Mrs. Huff in second grade told me that I think too much and ask too many questions and just memorize the multiplication tables, which I never did because I went on strike. I'm like, this is all made up. This is all BS. None of this makes sense.
You ought to hear me explain this to my 89-year-old mom.
Gregory says, I think you also need an exact description of what constitutes a transaction.
Greg, that's a very difficult one because it's, that's why I go through the long process saying sales of goods, services, and transactions, because I wish I could just say broad-based transaction tax, but it's just, the words aren't there. These are new words. This whole concept's so new. Believe it or not, it's a new concept. I thought it was like, okay, I can go look this up and find someone else that's already done this before. It was like nothing, starting from scratch.
What's the difference between this and a VAT, value-added tax, which is what they have in Europe? It's a national sales tax. What's the difference?
VAT's only on finished goods alone. VAT is only on finished goods. Remember I told you about the 5 steps of manufacturing? That's what a VAT tax is. And it's usually like 5% on every step. Now you talk about your tax compounding. And here's the thing. It's not that it's good or bad, but it doesn't collect enough money, in our case, to pay the federal budget. So theoretically, it's a good tax. But if you broaden the base again, that's where you go outside of that. And then you broaden the base to services and transactions. And here's the other thing is we don't know how many transactions we have. we could have so many transactions because our economy's so big. It might only be 0.5%, which would be very nominal, and no one's going to complain about that.
Right.
So
The one thing I do like about it is that everyone's affected when politicians raise taxes. Then
it's apolitical, 100%.
everybody gets affected.
No
So
winners or losers.
politicians, they will do everything they can to not raise that tax.
Right.
So.
Well, you talk about the liberals, though. The good part about this system, it collects enough money that the federal government has plenty of money. So remember you talking about Warren?
Well,
now they're going to go, oh, man, we got more money than ever.
Yeah, and Hunter Biden always has plenty of hookers. Come on. There's never enough, all right? There's never enough. Yeah, so that's a problem with you could say they'll have enough, but they are like, no. So the government will always overspend everything they possibly can. So, all right. Well, Steve Redden, thank you so much for joining me. You can find him at NOwTAXUSA. Scott Wagner says tax software is one of the greatest inventions to me. Yeah, but you wouldn't even need it. You wouldn't even need it, Scott. You wouldn't even need the tax software.
We'd put those guys out of business too.
Yeah, and you're laughing about it. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, you can join me on Friday, 9 to noon. I'll be in for David Webb on the David Webb Show. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, look for the Wendy Bell Show on Newsmax TV, and I will be there. And then, am I doing anything next? Oh no, next week's a merry week. Oh, so excited. Please subscribe to the channel. Please like the podcast, tell your friends. And the audio will be up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify probably tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I usually try to do it tonight. I'll do it tomorrow. Just look for Mary Walter Radio. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating with us. We really appreciate you doing that, and it really helps. And thank you, Steve, again for joining me. Follow him on X at NOwTAXUSA.
Follow and repost.
Yes, please.
A little action can make a big step.
And check out the webpage too, because kid you not, the t-shirts are great. So thank you very much.
Hey, one more shout out, Scott Pressler. Everyone supports Scott Pressler.
So Scott Pressler drove. Did you see his car with Virginia plates? He put a sign in the back of his car that says "Moving to Pennsylvania so I can vote for Trump." And he, because he went to PA to do registration, which is hilarious. But he tweeted out yesterday with all those people on the bridges, like Golden Gate Bridge, where the people were stuck for 5 hours. He's like, "Is anybody in the area get voter registration forms to make everybody register everybody for Republican?" And I thought that was brilliant. I loved that.
No, he's a trooper. Yeah.
Do you know him? I'd love to get him on the podcast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, just actually met him through X. Is how I met him. So
okay.
I'll do is I'll send him a message saying hook you up.
Yeah, because we would love to have him come to New Jersey. Yeah, I know he's super busy though, but if he can, that would be fantastic. I've interviewed him on the radio, and I've met him a couple times. And, he didn't go to CPAC, that kind of thing. He's so crazy busy. So I get that he may not have the time to do it, but I would love to have him on. So, All right, Scott, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and good luck. And if you ever have any news, he posts everything on X, and you can follow him there. All right, thank you. Take care.
See you. Good night.
Bye. All right, everybody. I will see you next Tuesday right here on Mary Walter Radio. Have a fantastic week.